All right, so finally, I am done with the offensive side of the ball. We're going to do the tight ends today, and then we're going to do the Tennessee Titans real grade at the end of this episode as well. And we're going to keep it short and simple. I mean, the tight end class is not great this year, I guess. And on top of that, I've said this many times this year. Unfortunately, having to deal with some misguided fans. I talked about tight end position a lot, and it is more so than receivers. If you listen to the episode, I talked a little bit about that position, but even more so than that, tight ends are like very plug and play. They're very dime a dozen. There are some elite level tight ends. Of course, you're talking about a Kittle, you're talking about a Kelsey, but even in that same breath, not there's not a real need to get a tight end in the top round for them to produce. Even talking about a Kittle and Kelsey in their respective drafts, but it's just not. I mean, it's very. I don't know what it is. Honestly, I don't think it should be, but it is. It's not like the running back where you get an amazing offensive line and automatically the running back's going to be a lot better. They still have to do things, but for whatever reason, the way offenses play, the way defenses play, you don't got to do a whole bunch to be effective as tight end. They let you push off. They let you, because I guess that's one of the biggest things is, number one, I always talk about tight ends are zone eaters and they're play action eaters. That's where they really get the business. Top tier tight ends can win in man coverage, and even those guys half the time is because they're pushing off. And so at one point, what was considered pass interference or should be pass interference is now considered a skill to uncover at the top of the route. And we're not talking about with actual route running. We're talking about by just pushing people out of the way and bodying a catch, playing rebound. And so since that's part of the position, a lot of players that aren't skilled or athletic enough to be route runners can still make plays. And then on top of that, you got the zone stuff as well. A lot of the misdirection and play action and all those good things. You got guys that just really can sit there and eat against a zone. And the thing is, most of these guys aren't great athletes after the catch. The better ones like a Kittle, like a Kelsey can do those things. But a lot of these tight ends, honestly, there isn't a whole lot of yak ability. There's some tight ends that give you more vertical presence, like an Evan Ingram. But even outside of that, they aren't great run artists. And so really as a tight end, and of course, people don't use tight ends to block as much as they used to. So really as a tight end, it's opened up. You don't have to be a great blocker. You don't have to be a great route runner. If you got sure hands, if you know what you're doing as far as the playbook, they can really set you up to be successful. And it really just depends if you got a quarterback that can get you the ball. And that's it. So with that being said, even though some people say the tight end class isn't great, even though I don't think some of these prospects are top tier, I still don't for a second believe any of them could come in or can't come in and contribute. So, but I'm going to just spend a quick little moment talking about the top guys that I like out of the ones I've seen and why I like them, and then we'll push on. So let's start number one with Cole Kmet, I believe, from Notre Dame, also from Illinois. Shout out. Really, this was his first year as a full-time starter, as far as I can tell, looking at the numbers and all that. But I really like him because he's an all-around tight end. Like, I really think Jason Witten, I made a joke on the community. I'm like, I know Jason Witten played for Notre Dame because that's really what you think of. As far as using his extension to get separation, as far as his ability to release off the line, even some of the routes they have him run off the line are very reminiscent of that really prototypical tight end, more so in the style that when Jason Witten became big. Because it's not so much the delayed release or the play action stuff, even though there's some of that, there is some, it's just really pro style releases. And I think he gets off the line well, not jammed up too easily. Good releases there. I think he's fast enough, not super fast, but fast enough to get vertical routes and really at least threaten the seam or do a crossing route. I like that. I like what they asked him to do in the blocking game as far as kicking out the edge, as far as pass protection, as far as moving the H back, doing a lot of different things that, again, a traditional offense would ask you to do. And I think he did well. I don't think he's a great blocker. I would say above average. Definitely some room to grow, but I still think he plays well enough, especially compared to some recent prospects. I think he's a pretty solid blocker with potential to grow, but even outside of that, you like him for his passing ability also. I just think he's well-rounded. I say he's an all-around tight end. 6 career touchdowns, so not huge, but again, those all came in this year. And I know he also played baseball as well, so I just like this guy overall. I like the makeup, I like the athletic ability, I like what they asked him to do, and to me, he's probably the most complete tight end of the group. I like his hands. I don't think he's a superb athlete, but I do think he's going to be able to give you everything you ask for in a safety type possession receiver or possession tight end, but I also don't think he's going to hurt you necessarily in the blocking game, depending on what you ask him to do. If you're not putting him on the island, if you're actually putting him within a blocking scheme. So I like that. Next up, I'm going to go down to Bryson Hopkins out of Purdue. And so I always kind of think of Notre Dame as the Big Ten, even though it's not, but kind of within that same area. Obviously, both in Indiana. I really like this guy. Very similar feelings to Kmet. The only difference I would say is that he's more athletic. Hopkins is more athletic. And so his movement is a little better, but similar. I think they asked Hopkins to do a lot of different things that are traditional to a tight end. But also he's a little bit more, like I said, of a receiver type than Kmet is. But the downside is Hopkins isn't as physically strong or functionally strong, I think, as Kmet is. Kmet, I think, just has a little more natural strength. And so Hopkins, while a very good blocker, he's going to have to get stronger to really be effective at the next level. And I mean be effective, not just get in the way. And so he's got to build that part of his game, but I think his tools and his fundamentals are really good. And so that's one of the first things I do look at is like what type of block. Because as a tight end, in any position, as I always say, you got guys that are great at multiple things. You got guys that are great at one thing. And you got some guys that are just okay. So Hopkins, I think, I always look at blocking first. And so, because I think most tight ends these days are receiver types. And so I want to see what type of blocking they give you as an add-on. And I like what he gives you. 16 career touchdowns. And that's the one stat that I looked at for tight ends. There's other stats I would like, but not a lot of advanced stats out there. So touchdowns is one thing I want to know, especially as a tight end, because that tells you a lot. So been around Purdue for a while, but that's good production right there. And I like his yak ability. I think after the catch, he can be a guy, especially if he works on the explosiveness. Because look, all the guys you think that are like major tight ends right now, trust me, they were not major tight ends in college. And it really has never been that for college players for the most part. And so there's a little bit of changing the body. There's a little bit of adding explosiveness. And so he definitely, I think, could be a guy that gets to that point. But all the top guys like Kittle and Kelsey, I talked many times before, I love them as prospects, but not for their receiving because they're blocking. And for whatever reason, maybe it's the mentality, the best tight ends come from that blocking background, and then they transform their body, they work on the explosiveness, and they become a much better target. And so I think Hopkins is in line to be able to do that. But I think he's a good mover right now. And so I really like that about him. I like his routes. I like the things they ask him to do. Very receiver-like. And I like his movement. Like I said, I think he's a little faster. A decent amount faster than Komet, but not a speed guy. Not a Evan Ingram. But I really like his agility. I think his movement and his hips and his change of direction are very, very, very strong. So that's another guy that I would look at as well. And then lastly, Thaddeus Moss out of LSU. And he's not Randy Moss at all. But the thing I like about him is he has very much a minus in the athletic area, but a plus in the strength area. I think he's a really, really good blocker, probably the best out of the group. And the competition that he went against in the SEC, you just see him holding his own on the edge against Auburn and, Georgia, places like that. And you see him not only doing it against defensive backs, which some of these tight ends can do, but he's also doing it against defensive ends and D linemen. And so absolutely great functional strength. Not the tallest guy, but I think he has good leverage, and I think he works hard at blocking. I don't think he's a elite blocker, but I think he's the best out of the group so far. And on top of that, I think he's a reliable safety blanket type thing. And so I think you got Hopkins, who's right in the middle between that blocker and between that blocker and receiver. I think you got Komet, who is on one end where he's very much a safety blanket. And then I think you got Moss on the other end where he's very much a blocker, but he does give you something in the passing game as well. So the blocking is what stood off the charts for me. But then I like his route running. He's just not athletic. I think he understands route running. He understands leverage. He understands setting up and stems. But I don't think, he's super fast. So he's not going to really create a whole bunch of separation against anybody playing man coverage with him. But I like his radius, his catch radius. I think his ball skills will help him stand out and be more of a 50-50 target in the red zone. Not to say that the other guys can't be either, but I think that's what he's really going to have to excel at as a receiver. And so we'll see how that kind of works out for him. But Moss is one of the guys I really like. I think he's solid. Outside of that, I know there's a number of guys. The next guy I like, Pickney from Vanderbilt. I didn't really, he doesn't have a lot of tape. I only saw a little bit. But I like the way he moves. I like the size. I like the functional strength. I think he would definitely be in my top 3 if I had a chance to fully watch him. So I'll have to just wait to the second round and see more. But he absolutely looks like a prospect that I would want at tight end. And then, of course, you got Harrison Bryant, who is the big-time stats guy from this year. And he's a straight-up receiving tight end. I mean, he's light. He's mostly in the slot. He doesn't remind me of Goddard as far as a player, but as far as the system, he reminds me of Goddard. That's a lot similar, where he was just always in the slot, pretty much like a big receiver. Except, he's big. He's 6'5", 240. So it's not like he's small, but he's not that massive tight end. And I don't know how much of a box out game he would really have against NFL defenders, but it'll be interesting. I just know this isn't the first type of guy I've seen like this, where I was like, dude, everybody's like, I think of Njoku, OJ Howard, Jonnu Smith. There's a couple other guys that was like, man, they're freakishly athletic. They're quick. You just line them up in the slot. They're a big slot and just dominate all day, and it just doesn't work out that way. So, there's something to be said about a lack of strength. There's something to be said about a lack of blocking experience. But I don't know, man. In today's offenses, I don't see why not. Like I said, I'm not discounting them, but just not in my top group. So, yeah. So those are the tight ends. Not a top heavy group as some people think. I think these are some good prospects, to be honest. But I got to continue watching the other ones in the second round. But they're not poised to go high. And again, I don't think that position needs to go high anymore. It's just what it is. So anyway, that's it for the tight end. So let's go ahead and get to the real grade. Once again, I go back to 3 years, 2017 draft. And 3 years is what it takes to grade a draft class or a draft prospect. Give them time to breathe and see what they can do. And then we can make a better judgment. So today we're looking at the Tennessee Titans. And we got this pulled up. So I didn't count this, but 9 players drafted. And so let's see. Out of this 9, we have 4 that are still on the team. So almost half. Now, out of the 4 that's still on the team, all of them are starters. We can technically say that. We can say they're all technically starters. So let's just go down this list anyway. Excuse me. Number 1, we got Corey Davis still on the team. We can count him as a starter. Another first round pick, we got Dory Jackson. We count him as a starter. Taywan Taylor in the 3rd round is now with the Browns, traded. Jonnu Smith, 3rd round, is a starter. Jayon Brown, 5th round, is a starter. And then the rest of these guys are out of the league on the practice squad. So off the bat, we got 4 people that's not in the league. 3 of them are 7 rounds, another's a 6th round. Not going to hurt me that much. You got guys that aren't in the league, but they were low round picks, so low risk. Jayon Brown, who was a bit of a project, definitely has become a very good asset for them and has stepped into those starting snaps to help the defense. So big get there. Now, Corey Davis, on the other hand, actually you got 2. So Corey Davis, I wouldn't say it was a reach, maybe a reach. For number 5, the receiver in class wasn't that great. And number 5, that's really high for him. And so he hasn't been a big time receiver as some people have thought he should be for that pick, I should say. But Adoree Jackson was the real stretch because this was a former receiver and he had not a lot of years at cornerback and he was more of a project and he has not panned out as well as you would hope. He, like I said, still starts, but at the same time, definitely not any top tier player. And really, when you look at all their players that's still on team, none of them are top tier. So it's okay. I mean, I think a starter is the first level. That's where you want starters. But when you look at it and you say Corey Davis went in the top 5, that's a different conversation. Adoree Jackson went in the top 20, different conversation. 3rd round pick Taywan Taylor is no longer with the team, and he came from a small school. So I thought he was a pretty good player, but still a little bit of a risk there. It's a lot to question. Jayon Brown being a starter for you, 5th round is a big boost. Jonnu Smith hasn't done a whole bunch, even as a starter. So a lot of these guys are question marks. Corey Davis is a question mark to really be on the roster. Adoree's not a lock to be on the roster. Jonnu Smith's not a lock to be on the roster. And your 5th round pick's probably the most locked. So there is a point where you can say we hit with our high picks enough for them to still be on the team and to contribute. There is the other side where you can say we had high picks and nobody really panned out like that. And so it's tough. For me, looking at this, with all things considered, I probably give this a C+. I give it a C+ because you did the minimum in having your team retain most of your high picks, and having them be starters. It's not like they're just on the bench. That'd be a different question. Losing Taywon hurts. Missing Corey in the top 5 hurts. So I got to give this a C+. All right, so that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the tight ends in this group. Let me know what you think about the Titans draft class from 2017. And next time you catch me, we'll be going over to the defensive side of the ball. So I'm excited. So go down in the comment section, share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.